Broc Glover here at the Dome at America's Center in St. Louis, Missouri, where we're getting ready for round 12 of the Monster Energy AMA Supercross Championship. And at the Dunlop Motorcycles Tires Track Walk, my co-host Wil Hahn, welcome.
Thank you guys for having me. Long time Dunlop. Actually full-time Dunlop. I don't think I've done anything else. So this has been, it's been awesome. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome. The fact that you actually have a win here too, which we were talking
Even
about
cooler,
earlier, was
yeah.
kind of dumb luck, to be honest with you. I do try to time and things like that. Mostly what I was looking at, Will, when I asked you to do the co-hosting here, is that this is kind of a home race for you, right? Growing up in Wichita?
For sure. Being in Wichita and being from Kansas locally, like this was our event, even though it's, it's a hefty drive. But yeah, I mean, lots of friends, lots of family over the years, and it always holds special memories, obviously with the win too.
And kind of here in Texas, between this one and Arlington were kind of your races,
For
right?
sure, very Midwest locations and everything like that. So yeah, it's always fun coming back here.
Well, tell us about your duties now at the TLD GASGAS team. I mean, you're the team trainer, I pseudo manager in some ways. I'm certain that a lot of the riders lean on you from your experience, right?
I'm very lucky that they have a lot of trust in me, and between Pierce and Ryder, I work with them. Obviously, Justin has his crew, but it's obviously he helps quite a bit with my side, and I help him whenever I can. But it's been a pleasure. These guys have treated me like family. I actually raced for them in 2010. So there's a lot of history there. Majority of my podiums came from Troy Lee, so it was really cool to have that family welcome home.
And then you worked for Star Racing for a little while, not to talk about, but you did. Yeah. That was part of your job for 5 years, team manager there in the 250s?
5 years managing there, and it was my transition straight off of racing, right? So being able to say I'm done racing, and I stepped right into that role and just put my head down and learned a lot. Like Brad and Bobby, they were very patient with me at the beginning and kind of showed me the ropes of what you would expect out of a manager. And I mean, they got the most out of me. There's no doubt about that.
Well, that's good. Now the TLD GASGAS. So thinking about benefiting from that, you are also working with a young up-and-coming rider from New Zealand, Cole Davies, and this is a Supercross Futures along with the Triple Crown. So we have a lot of exciting racing going on. But you've been working with Cole, and he ended up winning at Daytona the last time we saw the Supercross Futures.
So yeah, Cole's been awesome, right? So he's been under the tutelage of Josh Coppins and Ben Townley over the years in New Zealand, and man, he handed us off a very well-rounded rider and just an eager person that just wants the information, wants to work hard, and I think we've seen that result in the first 2 rounds here. So excited to have him back on the track, looking for another win.
Well, let's go take a look at this track right here. This venue here, the first time we raced a Supercross here was, I think, back in 1996, and it has a little bit of lore in the history of the sport, because it was the year that Jeremy McGrath had a perfect streak, winning 13 of the first 13 races. And he came in here, and Jeff Emig had a little different idea. Do you remember that?
Especially with the local boy. Going back to that would bring me back to the Terra Firma days, and when, all those memories of when, you're hoping you can be there one day, essentially, right? Watching with my brother and all that stuff, that's who we wanted to be. And for sure. I mean, it's crazy. And then getting right back to it and finishing off the season with winning.
Yeah, he did. It was amazing. But, he won every single race except one. He got a second, and that would have been the perfect season. But the championship was already his. He had the championship wrapped up here, and you kind of wonder if that was a little bit maybe psychological letdown, and he'd let his guard down a little bit or whatever it was. Or the fact that Jeff Emig from Independence, I think he's from Independence, Missouri, not so far from here near the other side of the state. So I think this one's probably for him. It was his hometown race, so he had a little extra boost.
It always gives you that little extra, I feel like, and especially on nights you need it.
Well, how about yourself? When you won here, did it feel like a local race for you?
It couldn't have felt any better. I remember looking up in the crowd from the podium, and they said Kansas proud or something on a sign, and I'm like, that's, even though it's Missouri, I mean, it is our home state. So for me, I raced a lot here as an amateur and an amateur motocross series in Missouri. So a lot of my, I would say, core memories of growing up are locally.
So taking a good look back here, Derek, on the camera, you can see right here, looking at the stats, 285 feet until we make our first turn where we're standing right here. So just slightly under what is a football field, obviously 300 feet to 100 yards. But it gives a nice layout here, and we've seen when they've had the long starts, and I'm guessing you might prefer a longer start.
Always did.
Because when we saw Ken Roxon, for instance, have to run LCQ last week in Seattle, he had 19th pick on the gate, was actually able to get a decent start.
For sure.
But when you worked with Justin Varsha and he had a bad qualifying session, then he had a bad pick on the gate, and they had a really short start at the race that happened in, it really made his whole night very, very difficult.
Correct.
So me personally, I like to see a longer start, giving all the gate choices a half decent chance of getting a good start.
Absolutely, and I think you see a little bit more fair, and it tends to be, even though it's higher speed, it seems to be less carnage as well. I think because the separation actually happens instead of being so balled up, right? So.
Right, exactly. You take a hundredth of a second or a few hundredths of a second reaction off of a gate, coming off those starting gates, grates on the starting gates, that their separation isn't much, so it takes a little longer distance to get that extra half a bike length, and then, as you mentioned. So perfectly flat corner in here, very, very wide, and we actually go across kind of that 180 corner we'll see later with the Rocky Mountain banners, but then we come across another landing of the finish line jump here to where we cross over almost 2 lanes before we actually hit the hole shot line there, the Ghostbusters hole shot line there, and that itself is about 415 feet off of the start. So quite a distance before we find out who gets that hole shot win.
Absolutely, and it's so difficult to have that urgency after you turn as well. Like as you're coming through, it's so difficult to like remind yourself like, oh, I got to go, because it's a pretty good straightaway into another turn.
It is. It's almost like it's a double apex, obviously. You turn, but then you sweep in here, and then you got to get back on the gas if you shut off too early.
Absolutely.
But then we come into a section that we actually got to watch press day today, and this was one of the sections that they used, but they were coming in off of the finish line jump and into this wall jump we'll see later, into a tight corner. So we really didn't see what it's going to be like on race when they're coming out of the section of whoops and hitting that single.
Yeah, and have another obstacle.
Yeah, in the first part of the sessions when the track is really, really smooth and clean, do you think someone's going to jump that and clear this, or is that?
Yes, I think so for sure. I think tomorrow night, depending on how it ruts up and on the face, obviously, but this dirt is like Velcro. Like, so to be able to pivot out of those whoops and how everyone's been doing it, I feel like for sure 450, 250s while it's fresh, once it gets ruddy, you're going to see them roll it.
Yeah, you definitely talk about this track right here, and we get to see the drone doing a little camera work right here for the TV guys. It's kind of cool, flying right over the top of our heads.
He's jumping.
Exactly, doing some doubles and triples. So we did see some of the riders cleverly trying to manage this section. They were coming off of here kind of imagining if I'm going to come down here, if I'm going to jump that, or how I'm going to do this. Because this next section right here behind us, we have 3 3-footers, then we go to like a 4 and a 5 that steps up.
Yes.
So what I saw seemed to be the best is when they'd kind of wheelie this, hit, and they would do a triple and then a triple. What was your thoughts?
Correct, and I think that's something like if you could see someone come off the start and coming over to control the inside and go roll 3, 3, 2 to the outside, like they're going to be so separated from the pack at that point that they have a big advantage as well. I mean, there's going to be options for sure. I feel like if you had to go inside before the whoops and you did not be able to jump in, you could go double, maybe triple again, triple and get opposite ruts. Because I think it's going to be a lot like Indy where it's going to be fine when it's fresh like it is at the moment, but as soon as it gets so ready that you're not going to be able to 3 at some point in these main events, especially when there's 3 back-to-back like that, you're going to have to search for that opposite line of getting some out of the ruts.
So since this is used to be used for football, but the 2 opposite sideline lanes here have the best combos in my opinion. They have a bunch of different choices.
Yes.
But you mentioned the dirt. The dirt came in here on Tuesday. Monday, the St. Louis area had well over an inch of rain. The track crew, the Dirtworks guys told me when they were trying to get the dirt moved in, they were pushing a lot of slop out. So the dirt came in a little wetter than they would have hoped for. A lot of ruts developed in press day, just on even the sections that they were running, but they're certainly hoping with the futures and all the riders on here that they're going to be able to pack in a little bit. Plus the main events, since there's 3 of them, they'll do have a little bit of 7-8 minute window to rush out and try to do some repairs. Because all these jumps right here, you could see, I remember Tomac was landing, this one was pretty rutted at the end. And I saw him one time land kind of in the face and you could tell it shot him off. So these will get more and more challenging as the night goes on.
And no doubt about it, when it starts deteriorating like that, you're going to see guys searching for those opposite rhythms.
Yep, you're going to have to. There's no question about it. So you mentioned earlier watching Supercross with your brother. Your older brother, Tommy Hahn, factory Honda rider. I mean, some people are, oh yeah, that's right, Tommy Hahn. And then, he's been out of the sport a little bit for a while, don't see him very often. But what was it like when you guys went when you were young, did you guys go to the race? Obviously a family, and you guys competed against each other once you got better and better, and it was, you know, tell me about the Hahn family going racing.
So, I mean, from a young age, it was just competitive, but we were so 4 years apart, so not close enough to really be a problem for him, but close enough to want to chase him, right? So it was always a competition of, we never really raced till we went pro, you know? I never had to race him as an amateur. He was always a little bit ahead of me, but there was always that competition that I wanted to be him. I wanted to beat him, you know? And looking back now, I think healthily, my dad gave us that kind of that competitive atmosphere that we did want to push each other, and it probably held us accountable more than we even knew.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, very much so. So speaking of that, when you turned pro in Freestone, so it wasn't crazily long ways away from your house, right? I mean, when you went...
No, and we had lived in Texas at that point, so for me, it was kind of a local track. I had ridden there a fair bit with the Millers, and I knew Clayton really well. My brother would go ride there. So it was a very comfortable atmosphere to step into, for sure.
So we came off that rhythm section into a sharp left-hand corner right here. Not the biggest berm. I mean, we saw people taking a lot of different lines because they did run this during press day. And they were accelerating, obviously, very hard across here in front of the starting gate. But one thing that did happen here, we talk about this beautiful dirt in the Midwest. Again, it has some clay in it, but it is a little softer than they probably wanted it. But it was developing a lot of braking bumps and rut. I mean, it was getting bumpy.
I'll be honest, this looked like an outdoor section at one point. Like, I even seen Tomac and even Colt Nichols, another guy I work with, he was like, they're jumping the bumps like an outdoor, like trying to get out of them.
You saw that? Yeah. Eli right there, there was a braking bump developed,
and I watched him
then
go
two or three more, and I saw him use the one and clear the other two. And so that was pretty clever himself. And then this section right here, coming into this 90 right here before we go into this triple, this thing,
this was annihilated.
Oh my God. There was ruts all the way across the face. And I saw Kenny Roxon go a little wide and then cut right up the left side to try to find a clean lane. You know, it got to where at the end of press day, there were a couple of 250 guys that
were doubling.
They were doubling it because it got so sketchy. So I'm sure they'll work it in and make it a little easier for the guys. But it got to where I'm sure they were thinking, I don't want to go down and press day.
Totally.
So, but the good news is, it is a domed stadium. You know, having the air conditioning and heating, all that will start drying the ground out. It's our last dome stadium of the year, though, man.
I know. I think we want to just, can we stay here a couple more weeks?
A couple more. I agree. We'll do the residency here.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a standard triple. Really, it's the 62 to 64 foot range. It's nothing hard for the guys unless it gets all rutted up. And if it does, or there's a little stuff section going on in that corner,
it becomes tricky.
Then you start having to check up and do a double. So,
especially with the dirt being soft, you really don't want a case.
No, you really, really don't. So this, talking about I don't want to call it a confusing track, but when I first looked at the map, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to bring the map down here and look at it because you don't get to see the whole track on press day. So coming into here, it almost makes you think, oh, you must be going across there.
You don't want to go there.
But you're not. This is a complete, you know, almost U-turn 180. But this corner laid out really well.
You know what? After we walked it before press, and I was like kind of confused why the bump, right? And then once I watched it develop in press, I was like, this is actually genius because this was actually a really good line.
This corner was as simple as it looks. I said the same thing. I watched from the team manager's tower for press day. There were 3 distinct lines in that corner. Inside on that the bump made a nice clean inside berm that didn't drift too wide. The outside one carrying a lot of speed was really good. And then guys were hitting the berm early and coming off of the berm early and coming right down the middle. So there were 3 great lines, as you said, Will. It was a very, very, as simple as it is, a well-designed corner.
Well, and it's kind of going back to the beauty of this dirt too, where you can pivot when you want to. And kind of develop those lines, right? Where it's a little on the soft side, but man, like I wish I could ride right now with the track being prepped. Like this is where I want to ride.
Exactly, the first session out there,
exactly.
Yeah. So had a little talk with the Supercross Futures guys this morning about that. They're the first people on the track tomorrow morning, and they're then the last session. So they're going to see the best and the most,
they're gonna be
worst.
Like, man, I wish I could have that fresh track again.
Exactly. They're going to be the first ones out, and then you're going to run through all the C's and B's and A's and A, B, C, and then back to the future. So. Quick short corner right here, not much of a berm considering this is our finish line corner, and so maybe we'll see some stuff and then pass in there. Maybe we'll see it come down to the last corner.
I mean, for sure, the straightaway always into the last corner is always exciting. Yeah,
last week's race was great all the way to the very, very end there. Even all the weather we had, ended up being a very exciting final race.
That's right.
And you watched it all. So Finish line jump looks standard, looks a long ways to me. How about you?
Yeah, always without that center. You know, if you put the double in between, it looks like a triple. But here you're like, man, it's kind of big.
It's good. Yep, jumping this.
And the longer you go without jumping it too, you're like, it just gets a little bit bigger.
Yep. Well, with last week, with Cooper winning last week and Chase getting second there, and Jet having his few little issues there, it certainly brought the championship a little bit closer. Then instead of having a 21-point lead, I think it's 16.
Yeah.
And then Chase is now within one race also, because he is got the cusp of falling outside of one race away from Jet. So the top three are all still within basically one race.
Striking distance is there, right? And I think the one guy you don't want to have that is Cooper Webb.
Exactly. Having Cooper Webb, he is. Having Cooper Webb.
He's dangerous,
Oh,
man.
my God. He is like a dog on a piece of meat
That's
steal the old Larry Huffman line, but he is. Once he gets a hold of you, he's not letting go. So a little wall jump here. This turned into a bunch of ruts. Yeah, I saw a couple guys in press day case it in here, and it kicked him up over the floor. And at first, I wasn't sure if he was trying to do a stoppie or he's just going to endo, but yeah, it was a little more challenging than that looks right now. So.
Again, looks like a super basic obstacle, but with the ruts and how the dirt develops, it ends up turning it very tricky.
So watching right now, we're actually coming off the finish. We talked about it earlier when we were going through the first corner, and then the wall jump here. And now, this is kind of an interesting feature. We're going the opposite direction of the first turn.
This is tricky as well, because your brain's going to be like, you're going backwards.
Yeah.
Like almost don't, you know?
So the first corner comes through here this direction all the way to the far banners where the Suzuki Tough Blocks are, and the racetrack goes this direction. And that's why I said I had to bring the track map and take a look at this, because it's certainly a unique section. And if you remember, this is not too unlike, was it Detroit last year? It seemed like that there was the...
Yeah, when we went back and forth.
Yeah, back and forth. And I remember when Hayden Deegan and I think it was Jordan Smith had a little standoff in this little sections like this.
Yeah, you're right.
So this is kind of the same section. There's just the 180 Dunlop bull corner and into another, and it's all flat. If you turn around real quick on this thing, Derek, it just comes off of that first corner on the other side of the Rocky Mountain banners that the ones are on the floor, or the Tough Blocks that were on the floor. It just goes flat all the way through here, right into the Dunlop 180. And then we head across into the Rocky Mountain 180. Now these are deep. Looks like we're gonna be racing at luge or something on the dirt. These are some big high bull corners. But think about that. That section, this section, and the one running back across the starting line where we're heading right now, the second time across the start, and we're gonna hit it the third time. Flat, no obstacles.
And it seems like you're gonna look at it like, oh, it's gonna be super basic and easy, where most guys I feel like are gonna almost choose to rest here, which you can't. Yeah. Because it's all time to be made up. It's all just flat straightaway, so you have to be on the gas. And the corners are gonna enable you to pretty much hit them wide open. Again, because of the dirt, the ruts are gonna be perfect.
Yeah, the traction here. So speaking of having the dirt being perfect, with all the traction that is available on this, when you're braking really hard and the front end's not sliding out, the tire's not slipping, you're able to just put so much more force on the suspension.
100%.
Like, are any of your riders saying, hey, listen, I'm too soft, I need to raise the ride height to get it out of the rut? Yeah.
Totally. Normally that's the comments were like, hey, the front's too soft now, that because like you said, you can enable like basically, you know, full, I want to say full power basically out of the bike and the suspension and the braking, but then also even the power. You know, you might change gearing here because it's so tacky and pulls the bike down so hard. You don't need to worry about, you're going to need some more bottom end. Where typically, like on a West Coast track, you'll be down the gearing back a little bit to have a little bit more finesse with the throttle.
Yeah, do the guys come in and go, man, my bike feels slow? Because it's
yeah,
when they're done here, like when the tires are rolling across here, you can see the perfect knobby imprint in the ground. So there's no tire slippage at all. It's full direct drive. Yeah.
I think explain it to the guys that haven't been here. It's almost a dream. It's basically Velcro for you. Yeah. It just feels like that. So
yeah, run it hard, brake hard, accelerate hard. Don't have to have much throttle control.
No.
So coming into this, they did have a little, they have a staggered bump here. This is a pretty small bull corner right here, a little berm, 90-degree berm. And this single right here is about a 3.5, almost 4. Then you go into a 5, and then there's another 3.5, 4 behind it.
Yeah.
Do you think, Will, that they can get from this corner on a 450 and clear from this over to all the way over there? And when Derek, you get up there, that's a pretty long shot to that final.
I mean, I think fresh track, Could you let Jet and Coop and those guys come out here and do it? Yes, but once it deteriorates, by the time they hit the track in practice, I have a tough time seeing it being something that you could repeat. So you're going to see the guys go out and bounce or tuck the inside roll too.
So if you bounce, you go off of that, bounce into this, and then try to clear the two. You just know one thing for certain is that you have to be downsiding right on that last Dunlop tough block there, because you got no chance. You have to clear that.
Yeah, there's no option. No matter what you do, you have to end up you have to jump the triple, because if you end up jumping like doubling the triple, it's over.
It's over. That's a huge loss of time. Yeah. So it's we'll see what happens. And then we talked about with the Triple Crown, the track will not be as terrible at the end. They rut it up at the end, but they'll have some time to race on a fresher track. But they got to do it 3 times. So
that's right.
It's gonna be a night. So yeah, this is a secondary triple. These 2 triples are back to back, side by side. They're twin triples. But this one to me just looks longer. I don't know why.
It does look bigger.
It's a pretty big shot right there.
Face maybe laid down a little bit more, but the landing's definitely bigger, and it seems just wider, longer, everything.
Yeah, it just seems like it's more than 62 or 64.
No,
I don't
it's
know.
sad too, because you look at it right now, and this is like typical track walk in the morning, where
yep.
you're like, okay, I don't know, this triple looks big, and the first lap you hit it second gear, and you're like, okay, it's not.
Yeah. So St. Louis, we talk about the dirt. This is almost, pretty much everybody always talks about St. Louis dirt. St. Louis dirt. It's always one of the favorites. Again, we already talked about the fact that it came in a little bit wet. Will it dry out with as much time as the rider's going to be put on the track? I do think it will dry out, but it's going to be great. But this rotation here in St. Louis, it's kind of the every other year track and a stadium, and so we don't come to it every year. The last time we were here in 2022, it was also a Triple Crown.
Yep.
If you remember. Can you remember who won in 2022? It was their last Supercross win. I think they had one more outdoor win after that, but it was their last Supercross win.
In 2022 would have been Marvin Muskin.
You got it. Good job. And who? Okay, so he only won one of the 3. Do you remember who won the other 2 mains?
2022 would it have been Ken Roxon?
Yeah, Chase won one of them, and
Eli,
you got it. Eli won. Yeah, Eli won here in 2018 on the Cowie. That was his last one. And then you had Roxon win. That's where you probably drew the Roxon from.
And that was his first. That was his first win back from being hurt.
Yep.
It's the first one in like 500 days. I remember that being like, I think everyone was emotional. Like I felt it. I was like, man, that's pretty cool.
Yep. And then Marvin won here in 2022. So who will win 2024? We'll find out tomorrow night for sure. But it's pretty cool there. In 2022, the 250 winner was. Do you remember who that was?
Yes, RJ.
Yep, RJ won. And then Jet went 1-1-5.
I can't remember where he crashed, but he threw it away in the last one.
I think it was maybe even the first corner, because I remember thinking back on it. I think it was like he started dead last and made his way all the way up to 5th.
You're right.
But unfortunately, so this section here, coming out of that 180, the monster corner there, monster whatever the new tough block there, come over here. Do you think this is a triple to here?
Yes.
Okay.
Especially fresh. Like this is a pretty, size-wise, I would say a pretty generic 3-in. And we're starting to see a lot more of these bananas, I would call.
I called them a saddleback, but you call them a banana or swayback, camelback.
Yeah, something like
that. See, these aren't all the way down to the stadium floor, so they're kind of just a swayback, so you don't drop all the way into the pocket. So they give you. So if you can clear on to here, now that's a nice thing because you don't go all the way back down. However, you now have about half as much face of the jump to give you the lift of what you're trying to do.
So you're probably not going to go 3 off of it because of the ruts again, and you would be going to the next big one. So for me, the cool thing about how this is laid out, it enables you to go 3 in and then go 2-3, or because of the ruts and everything that's going to develop, you're going to go 2-3, and you're still going to keep that low to low. Like you want to avoid the bigs in this rhythm. Like you don't want to go 3 off the big or that next big.
Yeah, if that's a 5, I think that, I don't know, that's a 5.5 or 6. It's a pretty good size 5-footer. It might be a little more than that. So when you're talking about going off rhythm too, this allows you the opportunity. So let's say you don't get the triple, it gets kind of rutted up on the takeoff, and you come down, and then here in this saddleback here, you take off on the front side of that, and then you can triple.
Correct.
And if you triple that, then you're on the rhythm what you are talking about and what you want. You're gonna go basically the 3 here, the 3-footer here, and then you're gonna be able to go 3 over the 5+ footer and clear the other 3 on the other side. So nice a group of options here, and I'm liking what you're talking about with adding the saddleback in there, that little sway back not all the way to the turf, it kind of throws a little bit of a kink into your plans instead
Correct.
of just having a rhythm section of the same ones in order.
Doesn't make it so cookie cutter, which is, I think, exciting.
Yep. I can't imagine trying to come up with ideas for a track.
No, at this point, I know, right?
It's like, here we are, we talk about the 12 rounds into it, and then...
I think they've done a really good job this year of
yeah.
kind of throwing some new obstacles in. I think it's been really good.
Yeah, it has. So I've enjoyed the season's been fun. A lot of rain, unfortunately, but
Yes.
you know what? Sometimes it just happens, and that's we're getting a lot of it in California even, so it's still getting rain there. So coming off this rhythm section again, this is just going to be a matter of what happens when it comes into the ruts, how the track develops, and so you can try to go off rhythm. So, but yeah,
This is all going to be tricky too, and how you want to set up, because it might, even though at the beginning when it's smooth, the 3-1 into the corner will be better, but when it gets ruddy, you might go 2-2 to avoid to then carry corner speed. It's
yeah, it's
very
nice
difficult.
Yeah. So the Indy, the fact that we've had the Triple Crowns now, Indy, and now we come into here.
Yep.
And then we still have 2 showdowns coming in the 250 class. That's another one coming. It's going to be exciting, and they're going to be in open stadium, so hope Mother Nature
behaves herself.
And minds her manners a little more than she has so far.
That's right.
So yeah, this this dirt here in St. Louis, everybody talks about how much fun it is. So the 26th time we've actually raced in St. Louis. I was surprised it's been that many, to be honest with you, because it's
cool.
Yeah, and how many have you been to? Do you know?
Man, I started coming to Supercross, it would have been 2008. So my first year at East Coast would have been 09. So from 09 on, and then now I'm here every year. So
that's cool. So here we go into these whoops. It seemed like with all the things we've dealt with, the weather, all I say, the whoops haven't been a big factor here.
No.
But now they're starting to, this looks like they ramped it up just about 10%, 20% size-wise. These look a little bigger. And we've got 9, 10 counting the little starter whoop. But I don't know, we'll see what happens. And what's your thoughts on this?
All going to be how it breaks down, and it's kind of exciting. Like they were doing this a lot in 2014, 2013, where they would build like a single into the whoops to throw your drive off, essentially. Where, I mean, fresh track, you're coming out for the first heat, or let's say the first, showdown or Triple Crown, you would jump in, or you would, I would say, roll and skim, because you're going to hit these as fast as you can. But as the night deteriorates and these are going to get smaller and maybe chewed up, I really think you could go outside and jump into this pocket and then go 3-3-3 like they've been doing.
Like we saw, that's what we did see Jet do, and Martin Davalos was the co-host that night, and he called it, and it was kind of ironic that nobody did it until Jet, I think, did it in the second of the mains of the Triple Crown that night. So it's pretty good. So this race, St. Louis, the last guy to win in St. Louis and go on to win the championship was back in 2016. I'm putting you on the spot. Do you remember who that rider was?
Oh, Dunge. You got to be Dunge.
Jeez, dude. Like trivia quiz winner. Speaking of Dunge, so Uncle Ryan has his nephew racing in the KJS.
Saw
Did you
that.
see
How
that?
cool is that? Yes.
Liam, yes, yeah.
Awesome.
His brother, yep. Jay Dungy's son is racing in the
Came by the truck earlier, and everyone was hyping him up, so we're excited to watch
I love seeing that when you see somebody's name and on there. You're like, oh, I know this name or somebody's family.
Really cool.
He's a beginner. I mean, he's just starting, but he's having fun. How
it should be.
Yep, exactly. So here we are coming down towards the end, Will, through the whoops right here. And now this is where I thought it was going to be a little bit tricky, because I was thinking these guys were going to be able to, no problem, come out of this corner and then just jump right over that. And I still think they're going to when the track's fresh. But this flatter corner doesn't give you a whole lot of berm to work with, huh?
It's very tight here, too. Like, you don't have a lot of real estate. The only thing that I could see enabling, and it's all going to be dependent on ruts, right? But if you go 3 out and you can kind of pick where you want to go in the corner, it's going to be easier. And if you skimmed and you get forced out here and then have to brake and drive, different story. If you triple out, land with momentum, and then figure out where you can go.
Exactly. So, well, Levi Kitchen has brought himself the Pro Circuit team back on top. Had a great Seattle race, no question about it. They separated him a little bit. RJ got himself into second place.
That's right.
Did him a little bit of a challenge there, and we'll see what happened. Unfortunately, Jordan Smith had a very off night that dropped him back there. But what are you seeing for this? The confidence in Levi is
he's got the momentum. You know what I mean? No doubt. And I think that he's been that momentum away from being on the kind of run he's on. He's a really great racer. Yeah. He's very experienced. He's a mature rider. Happy for him in a lot of ways. I think RJ wants this pretty bad. He's going to fight. We all know he's a fighter. Jordan's been really successful here in this stadium. So I think
as RJ has too. He won
so
the last time here. We talked about
you get that.
Yeah,
you get that feeling, and I know it doesn't make sense because the layout's always different. But a venue, for some reason, when it brings you good vibes, it brings you good vibes. So I think we're gonna see some good racing.
Warm, fuzzy feeling. You always talk about it.
That's right.
Like Cooper Webb and Arlington, right?
It's one of those deals.
It is. So, all right. Well, Will, thank you. We're coming back around the final corner, and this is where we were talking about entering the end of the first corner where we're intersection here, and I appreciate you helping out here.
Appreciate you having me.
Thank you very much, sir.
As always.
Thanks for tuning in, and guess what? We got another one of these coming, but we finally get one weekend off in Supercross, and we'll see you next round.